This is a Cree LED bulb. It's one of their older models. I don't think they're selling this one anymore. In fact, I've seen them on clearance at Home Depot for $2 or $3, which is a lot cheaper than the 10 or 15 I think I paid for this one. This one is in a fixture in our kitchen with two other bulbs, all bought at the same time, same model, everything. This one started having an issue though, where it would just sort of turn off randomly. I checked the obvious, made sure it wasn't loose and stuff like that, but and then I emailed Cree about it, and within a few hours of my email, Cree came back and said, we'll send you out a new bulb and just dispose of the old one. I think these have a 5 or 10 year warranty on them. So here I'm just, the cover is glued on, or at least I think it's just glued on at this point, so I'm just scraping away some of the glue with the razor blade, using some brute force, try and get this cover off. That cover is actually glass, which is interesting because I think all their current stuff is all plastic. I'm not sure why glass was used in this case, other than maybe at the time they were worried about using plastic because it might melt. It's interesting, this actually appears to be fairly modular, with the exception of the fact that the cover is glued on. Scraping away some of the glue here because I see clips that this main heatsink that the LEDs are on, they sort of clip to the base. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if they necessarily, or if that indicates that they meant for this to be repairable, which would be odd and yet amazing, or if it was just a means to make assembly easier. So here I'm checking to see if there's anything obviously loose or anything like that. I'll find out later that, or in a second here, that sticking my finger on this LED maybe isn't the best or the brightest idea. Huh? No pun intended. So I'm measuring the voltage going into the LEDs, and that volt reading is right. It's 264 volts DC. So you can see why sticking my finger on that wasn't maybe the brightest idea. I'm just using some solder wick to pull up some solder from the base. There's a wire that is soldered to the base, holds the board in. I was looking for any obvious sign. I didn't see anything. Nothing blown. No major signs of heat damage or anything. There's some discoloration on some of the labeling on the board, but nothing terribly obvious. So here's the basically all the major components of the bulb laid out. Like I said, fairly modular. It's kind of interesting. So here you can see this is the LED substrate, and I've removed the LEDs at this point, but I outlined the path that the power is taking, and you can see that it's obvious. There's 10 LEDs, and driving them at 264 volts, give or take. It's with 10 LEDs, it's about 26 volts an LED, which for LEDs of this caliber makes sense. Here's the main board. You can see the inductor that's obviously being used to boost your standard household current. I'm just pointing. There's a diode underneath that inductor, which I thought was sort of odd placement. And here you can see that they're using a good brand capacitor. It's 105C rated, 315 volts. But also you can see the discoloration in some of that labeling. It's pretty obvious it's from heat. Whether that's an indication that the bulb is getting too hot or anything like that, I don't know. I don't quite get the fit right on this, but you can see how the LED substrate fit on this heatsink. Kind of interesting that there wasn't any thermal compound. I think I would have expected that. There's some individual shots of each component. Like I said, very modular. Snaps. I ended up breaking the snaps to get because I wasn't worried about trying to get it back together. But like I said, with the exception of the fact that the cover is glued on, it appeared modular, and almost like they may have intended to make it repairable. Now, the fact that they didn't actually want me to send it back maybe discounts that, but or the fact that it's just an older model bulb that they don't want to deal with anymore. But it may just be that that was the easiest way to make it or to assemble it, so have everything just sort of snap together. These may in fact be assembled by hand, or at the time they may have been. I don't know. So here's the some of the major components that are labeled, part numbers and that, and it kind of it threw me for a second because you see the obvious, you see the bridge rectifier, the MOSFET, that all seems fine, but there's nothing. I wasn't like finding what was driving the constant current driver for the LEDs, because LEDs are obviously a current driven device. They need a constant current. But the PFC controller, the power factor controller, I could understand why that might be there, but I couldn't understand why it was there and why an IC to regulate the current wasn't there. But after some digging, ST Microelectronics, the company that makes that PFC controller, the L6562A, they have an application note that talks about using the L6562A as a constant current inverse buck LED driver. So that answers the question as to what it is doing there and where is the current driver. So the only other thing I found that I thought was interesting was some crud on one of the inductors, the smaller inductor. I'm not sure where it came from or if it even means anything. And in this picture, there was actually a lot more. It's sort of some of it rubbed off before I took the picture, but kind of interesting. And the only other thing besides that was around the capacitor. There was some crud that I at first kind of thought might have been the capacitor leaking, but it may just be stuff left over from assembly. I don't think it indicates. I mean, the cap looks fine. It's not bulging or anything. So, not really clear why this was having an issue. Maybe it was the loose one of the LEDs during disassembly actually came off. And even though they're not hard to get off, but it was the only one that fell off sort of on its own. Maybe that was it being loose. Maybe that was either contributing to or the cause of the issue. So, anyway. Really happy with Cree's. Well, first off, the construction of the bulb. If you've ever taken apart one of the cheap, direct from China type LED bulbs that are meant to run off household current, 120 volts, that sort of thing, they're actually scary. And I'm sort of known as an LED snob because I tend to for stuff like this, I tend to stick with like Cree known brands, because the cheap stuff, I've taken a couple of cheap bulbs apart, and I actually had one that I had gotten from my wife's china closet, just in, sort of an accent lighting, to replace the incandescent ones that were in there, and they were just a cheap, Chinese, type thing that I think I got off Amazon or something like that, and anyway, I got them, and they worked, but I wasn't really happy with the light output or the color temperature or anything. So I ended up replacing them. But I took one of them apart, and I mean, almost every component that wasn't black was black, because it was just getting so hot, and it was almost burning everything inside, because you get these cheap LEDs and they don't take thermal management into consideration, and I consider them a hazard. So it was nice to take apart an LED that is obviously well constructed and well built, and I think designed to actually last. Like I said, these come with a 5 or 10 year warranty, and to that, to Cree's credit, they actually seem to honor that. I don't know if my result, them sending me a new bulb and stuff like that, is typical, but they responded within a few hours of my just asking, hey, I've got this bulb, it's doing this, what do I do? Or sending me a new bulb, and that's awesome, because you could put 5-10 year warranty and just assume that maybe no one's ever gonna try to claim on that, but they seem to stand behind their product, and it's a well-built, seems like a well-built product, and even though this one obviously was having an issue, I don't know what their failure rate is or anything like that, but like I said, this was in a fixture with 2 other bulbs, all bought at the same time, same model, same environment, and those other 2 are working swimmingly. So anyway, I think that's it. Thanks for watching.